Hi, I'm Amanda and I should probably be reading, but today we're talking about the manga I'm reading for the 30 in 30 challenge in September. Welcome back to my channel. Long time no see, but luckily not long time no reading. I have been reading, just haven't been posting about it, but we are changing that now. So a little while ago, I was watching Realm of Kids Lit Comics from Ashley, and she talked about the 30 in 30 manga reading challenge. And I think I had seen the one advertised in the spring, but for whatever reason, I had a bunch of stuff going on that month. I can't remember what month they do it in spring, maybe April. Whatever reason, I had a bunch of stuff going on, and I thought about doing it and then got distracted and didn't actually start it. But this time I was like, ooh, I have a whole bunch of manga I need to get read. So that is perfect for September for me to try to get more of my manga read. So if you haven't seen the 30 in 30 challenge, I'll link the 3 hosts down below. I'm only followed, at the beginning of this, I only followed Ashley, but I'll link the other 2 hosts down below. They seem absolutely lovely as well, and I'll definitely be checking out more of their content. Before we start, I thought I've collected a few stats so that you know why I really wanted to prioritize this challenge for myself. So if you saw my book haul video from last year where I talked about all the books I hauled in 2024, I ended up with 16 unread manga, 14 of which I had bought and 2 of which were gifts that I had not read that in 2024. So as of the beginning of September, I still hadn't read 12 of those volumes of manga. And I said at the end of that video that I really wanted to prioritize reading the books I bought in 2024, getting those read so that I can knock those off my TBR and feel better about the books I'm buying because I'm reading the books I'm buying. But turns out I hadn't made as much progress in that as I thought in the manga department. I still had 12 of the 16 volumes unread at the beginning of this month. On top of that, while I have read 27 volumes of manga so far in 2025, I have also bought 35 volumes. And that sounds pretty good if all of those volumes I had read were from this year, but let's break that down real quick. So of those 27 volumes, 16 are from a manga tournament I'm currently working on where I pitted 16 volume 1s against each other, and then the winners, I picked up volume 2. I'm in the middle of the tournament right now, so I haven't posted anything about it because I wanted to be pretty much done before I started posting, so you guys wouldn't have to wait for the end. But 16 of those 27 were for that. And those volumes of manga were purchased pre-2024. I think I bought most of them in 2023, but some of them could even be older. So I had the idea a while ago, before I even had a channel, of wouldn't it be fun to do a manga tournament, because I saw Gavin from Gavin Reads It All doing a cool manga tournament, and I thought, oh, that looks cool, but I would do it a little different. And so then I picked up 16 volumes of manga and didn't read them. I'm noticing a pattern. So 16 of those were that. That leaves 11 left. 4 of those I have mentioned were ones I purchased in 2024. 1 was from the library. 3 were from the TBR swap I did back in March with my husband, where we picked out each other's TBR for the month. So those were books that I know, those were not books I bought or acquired in any way, shape, or form. Those were from his collection, and all books, I believe, that were older titles as well. And then that leaves 3 volumes of manga that I bought in 2025 and read in 2025. So I had bought 35 volumes of manga and received 1 as a gift, which leaves us at 36, and I had only read 3 of them. So I have 33 volumes of manga that I bought this year that I haven't read yet. And I'm not proud of those numbers, especially after last year where I did so well at reading more than I had unread and saying that I wanted to prioritize reading those titles. I haven't done that, and I have picked up more. So that's where we're at. I still have 12 volumes from last year on my TBR and 33 volumes that I bought this year on my physical TBR, not counting the large but unknown quantity of manga that is on my physical TBR bought prior to that date. So I need to make some dents in these numbers. I need to read what I'm buying. I need to prioritize some of these things. So I thought the 30 in 30 challenge would be great to just really prioritize reading manga this month and try to get my physical TBR back under control. So the main point of the month is to try to read 30 volumes in 30 days. That's the main goal of the challenge. If you can't do 30, they encourage you to do as many as you can and just try to engage and read more than you normally would. On top of that, there are challenges. I believe there's a list of 50 different challenges you can do. And depending on how many you complete, you can get different levels. You level up in your challenge rating. It's just a way to gamify it and make it fun and maybe push yourself to read even more or things outside your comfort zone. So I will be looking at that a bit later. Right now I'm trying to focus on things in my physical TBR and getting those taken care of, and I'm going to see where all those fall in the challenges and see what I have left after I check off some of these other volumes. I am not going to complete all 50 challenges. The one I'm being very aware of is that one of the challenges is to read at least one volume every day. And so far I am on track for that challenge. I have read at least one volume of manga every day. So my goal with this vlog is I'm going to try to probably put out 3 vlogs for the challenge. I'm going to try to put one out covering the first 10 days of the month, then the next 10, and the final 10 days. And that should give me a fairly balanced amount. I was thinking about doing 4, but the weekly split didn't work as nicely as those 30 days divided into 3. So, and plus, I've been sick. And still am. So the month started out, I was sick. I didn't feel like doing hardly anything. I knew I wanted to get some manga read. I knew I wanted to prioritize this challenge, and I didn't want to let it slip right off the beginning. Again, this reading one volume every day is like a bonus challenge. You don't have to do it. It wasn't something I had to do, and I immediately failed if I didn't. But I was like, I definitely can read one volume. I'm on the mend. I'm just still feeling drained and blah. So I wanted to start with something that I was familiar with, where I knew the characters, I didn't have a lot to learn about the story, something that would be easy reading that I would be able to fly through in those first couple days while I was still feeling so run down and tired. So I chose to read Blue Lock episode Nagi. So this is a side offshoot story from the main Blue Lock series that follows Nagi and Reo in the parts of the story we didn't see before he met up with Isagi, the main character of Blue Lock. This was exactly what the doctor ordered. I read this the first day, Volume 2 the second day, and Volume 3 the third day. Volume 4 is out, but I do not own it. And one of the other challenges is to not buy any manga in the whole month of September. I don't know if I will be attempting that one. Right now, on a slight technicality, I am in the running for that one, but I've gotten caught up on several series I was behind on, and I'm already like, ooh, I need to go to the store and buy more manga. So I don't know if the temptation will be able to be met or not. We will see. But so I have read the 3 volumes of Blue Lock episode Nagi. This one was bought at the tail end of last year. I got it as a Christmas present. And then these 2 I bought this year. This series is, I wouldn't even call it required reading for Blue Lock unless you really like Nagi and Reo. If you want to see more of their sides of their story and more scenes with them in it, it's a decent read. The main problem is that Nagi doesn't have any character development until he meets Isagi in the main story. So we're not really seeing anything interesting about Nagi in these volumes. We're seeing more of where he was, as he was a slacker. He didn't really want to put in any effort. Really, Reo is like the only reason that he's even in Blue Lock and attempting this at all. Reo has to kind of find ways to trick Nagi into putting forth any effort. So it was interesting seeing some of the ways that Reo worked with the team and some of his leadership abilities that I don't think we had seen in the main Blue Lock proper. That was kind of fun to see, but I don't feel we got to see very much of it. Most of these 2 volumes is just seeing the 5 games that they went through in that Team V, pretty sure it's Team V, that Team V went through in the first selection, and it's really fast. It's like a supercut. It's like, here's all the people we saw Isagi fight, and here's what it was like for them to go up against this other team that we also mentioned was there. So you hadn't seen any of these matchups previously, but you were familiar with all these characters. But again, it was kind of a speed run through all of these games. None of them took very long. None of them developed any of the characters in really any interesting ways. We got to see more of Zantetsu, but it really wasn't very flattering to him, and Reo's very mean to him. In fact, most of the characters are pretty mean to him at the beginning. He's a character who gets a lot of things wrong when he talks. And while it is kind of a cute character quirk, it does kind of lean heavily into the like, oh, this guy is stupid, which isn't super fun to read about. I didn't think this side story would last beyond where Nagi met up with Isagi in the second selection. We've seen all of that. He's with Isagi. We see all of those things in the main Blue Lock, and yet this 3rd volume is just continuing into the selections. Most of this 3rd volume from here, this covers the end of the match with Team Z, and then the rest of this is stuff we'd already seen Nagi in. We'd already seen Nagi joining up with Isagi and how that changed things. We got maybe a little bit more with Reo and a little bit, we get more internal monologue from Nagi, but I didn't feel like it was anything that we didn't already know. It didn't feel, in the most critical of what I could say it didn't feel worth reading. The art here is wonderful. It matches the original really well. It feels really kinetic. The soccer moves all look great. It looks really good. It looks really consistent with the main series, which is amazing considering it's done by a different artist. But I just don't know why this is the story we wanted to tell. I would have understood if we started a bit more with Reo and Nagi before they entered Blue Lock and we got even more of that backstory. But we really didn't get that much more that we hadn't already gotten in the main series. So really, I just don't know why this exists. When you have a character who specifically doesn't have his character growth until he meets your main character, telling more of his backstory doesn't add much. If anything, it just added a little bit of insult with some of the things that were said prior where it's like, ooh, Nagi, that wasn't cool. I don't know. It was fun, it was light, it was an easy read, which is what I needed, but it's a really hard one to recommend. I would not recommend Blue Lock Nagi unless you are absolutely a Blue Lock completionist who wants to read absolutely everything out there and really enjoys Nagi as a character. It's just not very meaty, and again, the characters don't have any development that we haven't already seen. So, I don't know, I'm going to pick up the last one because I really like Blue Lock, and I have most of it. I want to see where it goes, but it's a hard one to recommend. Next, I finished up Batman Justice Buster. This is number 4. I've had this one for a while, and I've been sitting on it because this series has been kind of a roller coaster. It's, in some ways, incredibly predictable and incredibly by the numbers, and in other ways, incredibly interesting and unique. I just don't feel those unique things outbalance the predictable things. We're dealing here with a Batman AU where Batman is currently working alone. He has created an AI to help him fix Gotham, and I don't feel like I have to tell you where the story goes from there. He created an AI to help him carry out justice. If you guessed that the AI would turn against him, and that the AI would be one of the ultimate antagonists of the story, you'd be right. It tries to do some interesting things with that part of the plot. It tried to introduce some characters in a new and unique way. Some of them were successful, some of them were not. Some of the things the series tried to do, this wasn't this volume, but earlier on in the series, it introduces who is clearly Dick Grayson. It introduces the fact that his parents died in a circus, and they try to give him a different name. And you're like, but that's Dick Grayson. That's definitely Dick Grayson. He has Dick Grayson's backstory. And then they tried to pull off this stunning reveal that his name is actually Dick Grayson. And I'm like, no, it was obvious. So they were trying to do something different, but they relied so much on the established parts of the character that if you've never read Batman before, the reveal that he was Dick Grayson wouldn't have worked because you'd been like, who is Dick Grayson? And if you know who Dick Grayson is, the reveal doesn't work because you already knew it was Dick Grayson. So I see that a lot in comic books where writers try to pull these cute little things, and the way they set them up does not work because that very reason. People unfamiliar with the comics the reveal won't mean anything to them. And people who are familiar with the comics figured it out ages ago. It just seems to be a really difficult thing to do when you're playing with comic continuity and you're trying to do something new. However, this did do something really interesting with another character. I'm not going to spoil beyond further because that's what made this series worth reading, but that character's not in this volume. So, all of the things I thought were really cool that the series did earlier aren't in this volume. This volume was a very by-the-numbers, fairly predictable end to this series. Also, the binding of this volume is so weird. So, okay, I have to talk about this. Normally, I can hold a volume of manga open with one hand. This is just my thumb. I can hold this open while I read it. Like, I can turn the page, I can hold it open, right? Easy. This volume is so tightly bound that if I try to hold it open, it won't stay flat. It's trying to close. Like, I am trying to hold this open with one hand, but it is trying its hardest to close on me. Also, because it's so tightly bound, the images go all the way to the center, like a lot of old volumes of manga did. So it can be hard to see what's going on in that middle bit if there's something going on. I don't know if I could find a good example. Like here. Those pictures go all the way to the middle. And it makes it kind of hard to see. These are both published by Kodansha. Like you can see, there's the Kodansha mark on both of them. These are published by the same company, clearly by different printers. But I don't understand how you get this so wrong when we've been publishing manga for so long at this point. Like, this is hard to read because it is so stiff and it's so strange, and I can't tell you another volume of manga I have that has this problem. But this whole series has been like this, and it's weird. So that was another one that was a fairly easy read, finishing up a series. I didn't know it was the last volume when I was reading it, but at the end it's very clear that it's the end of the series. So glad to have that series checked off my list. Next, I decided to read one of the volumes I got from my local library, which is Sakura Hime number 3. If you watched my big, I believe it was in my big January vlog at the beginning of the year, where I just read a whole bunch of short stuff, I read the first 2 volumes of Sakura Hime. So when I saw this one at the library, I was like, oh, that's the next one I need. And this was published in like 2011. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to find these very easily. So when I saw it at the library, I was like, I should definitely pick that up because I don't know if I want to try to track them all down or if I just want to read them from the library. That might be the better option at this point. So I tried to start reading this one, realized I had no idea what was going on, so I went back and reread most of volume 2. I'm not counting this because I did not reread the entire volume, but I probably reread 60% of it, so I probably should have just gone back and reread the whole thing, to be honest. But this story follows Sakura, who is the granddaughter of Kaguya, the Moon Princess. She is not entirely human, but is the only one who can fight these monsters. They call them Yoko in this one. She's the only one who can fight these monsters, these demons that are also from the moon. She's the only one who can defeat them, because she also has the powers of the moon that are able to defeat these beasts. This is a very strange shoujo comic in that, spoilers for a super old manga series, if you're worried, I'll put the comic down when I'm done saying spoilers. Sakura and her main love interest are already a couple in this volume. They get together in this volume. And it was really interesting reading the author's note where she talked about she had gotten advice not to have the couple end up together until the last volume or the last chapter, one of the two, I can't remember. And that this was the first time she's broken that because she doesn't feel this story is about love. And for a shoujo series, I thought that was so interesting. Okay, spoilers over if you want to come back. So this, I can't say too much about this series because it is volume 3, but apparently this volume finished introducing the main characters that we need to know, and it ended with a note that said, the story really starts here. So I feel like it's hard to know like where things are going to go because a lot of the conflict from the first 3 volumes has been resolved, and now we're left with this other part of the conflict that was not as clear in the first couple volumes. So I'm enjoying this one. There's some things I like with every character having a soul mark that's a different kanji that kind of determines their fate, and seeing how those play out and what different characters' marks are has been very interesting. I like the art. It's very cute. It's set in like historical Japan, so the outfits are very beautiful. Everything's very nice. I'll probably continue this one. Again, I think I'm going to look for this one from the library just because I'm on the fence of whether I want to try to own it, depending on how expensive they are to track down. And if my library has them, I might as well utilize my library in reading these right now, because that would be much easier than tracking them down to purchase myself. So I'm liking this one. I haven't read a whole lot of shoujo, so I don't have many comp titles to it. In my head, it feels a bit like Cardcaptor Sakura, and that might just be because the 2 characters are named Sakura, so that comes to my mind. I watched the anime for that a bit when I was very young. But yeah, the characters are fun. I enjoy their interactions, and there have been some really green flags with the main character and her relationship that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. Next, I read the one that is my technicality because we went to a bookstore this past weekend, and while I did not purchase any manga, my husband did purchase in my name, Cat Gamer 8. So he also has read Cat Gamer, so technically this could be for him as well, but he bought it for me. But I technically didn't buy it. He paid for the books, so on a technicality, I have not bought any manga this month. So, am I cheating? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It might not matter because I might want to buy some more manga later, but we'll see. This is the last volume of Cat Gamer, and I am devastated. I love this series so much. The mangaka has another series coming out called, I think, Cat Crazy? Yeah. That I'll probably check out, but the intersection of cats and gaming and this idea of leveling up your cats and leveling up as a cat owner like you would through video games was just so right up my alley, so compelling, so cute, so wholesome, and I'm just gonna miss that. I don't know if any of the characters carry over into Cat Crazy. It does seem like it has a brand new main character, but I don't know if any of these characters we were introduced to will cross over. I don't know. But I love this series. It's so cute. And the cats have grown from tiny kittens into cats. And it was just so fun. I highly recommend this series. I'm even more of a dog person than I am a cat person. And this was just This was perfect in so many ways. I realize I'm shadowing my face depending on where I hold this. Over here. I'm good at this booktuber thing. Yeah, I'm totally skilled. It's a quick read. It's a light read. The cats are never in danger. It's a very low stress read. All of the problems are very normal cat owner problems. And it's just very sweet and wholesome and lovely. And I couldn't recommend it enough. Love Cat Gamer. So sad it's over. I'm glad the mangaka didn't decide to like stretch it out forever when they weren't enjoying it anymore or anything like that, but I am still really sad that it's done. That means 2 series I have finished, which is exciting. On a completely different note, next I read the first 2 volumes of Strange House, which are based on the novel Strange Houses, which I read earlier this year. So this was another super fast read because I have read the novel it is based on, and it is, for the most part, an exact 1-to-1 retelling of the novel, except in pictures instead of in words. So, if you've already read the novel, I don't know that I would recommend this necessarily unless you really enjoyed it and want to see it kind of play out in a visual medium. I don't know. If you don't want to read the novel, this is a very good alternative. It's very faithful to the story. It's got a lot going on. And it's hard to say which one makes you more curious to try to solve the mystery or to like think about the mystery, because I don't think you can solve it. There's a lot going on. I feel like it satisfyingly wraps up in the novel, so it probably will in this too, but it's not something you can solve. However, you can spot a lot of the clues. You just might not be able to figure out what the heck they mean. You can spot the things that are strange and say, hey, that raises some questions. I want to know more about that. You're probably not going to figure out all the answers, but you feel good when you notice something that takes a while for the main characters to talk about and go, oh yeah, this is also very strange. I was not as engaged in thinking about it in this one because I already know all the answers. So it's hard to tell, and since it is exactly the same story, it's hard to tell if I would have been as engaged as I was with the novel if I had read this first. It's impossible to tell. My husband did say when he was presented at the very beginning with this page, asking you to look at these blueprints and figure out what's weird at them, he did sit there and look at them for a good long while and wanted to know more. So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the medium doesn't matter for this story. It was already mixed media. Putting it in a completely visual form maybe also works well. There have only been like 2 scenes I noticed that were completely made up from the source material. One was a dream sequence so that we could have a character walking through the house, and the other was, I think it was all dialogue that was from the book, but we had it with 2 very small children, which was very odd. But most of this book is told in the novel in the form of dialogue between 2 characters. A lot of it is told as like the transcript of conversations. So to liven that up so that it's not just 2 people sitting across from each other talking, they tried to add a little variety into some of these things, and I can appreciate that. I feel like they did a good job. It didn't feel completely out of character or wrong. It was just a little funny to randomly see these 2 very small children being talked to about presumably a murder house. Oh, I didn't talk about what this is about. So the short version is that this character is given a set of floor plans for a house that his friend is thinking about buying, but he's got some questions about some abnormalities in the floor plan. And so our main character, who is unnamed, consults a architect friend, and the 2 of them kind of start spitballing about what these peculiarities of this house could mean, and things continue from there. I can tell you this one goes off the rails. I know at least volumes 3 and 4 are out. I am going to continue it. I do want to own these. I think it's very fun. I really like Uketsu, the author of the novels. I really like his works. So I want to continue to support this, and it's a fun one to read if you prefer manga over novels. Next, I read my other library manga pickup, which is H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. I have not read the story this is based on. I'm very familiar with Lovecraft, like, outside of the actual works. I've consumed a lot of things based on the Cthulhu mythos, but maybe not directly adaptations of the original stories. I'm very aware of the mythos. I really love the tabletop role-playing game Call of Cthulhu. I love its systems. I love its mythos. I love watching stories about how certain encounters play out. It's really cool. But I haven't read a lot of the original stories. That is one of my 25 for 25 this year, is to read a collection of Lovecraft works. But I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'll have to see if At the Mountains of Madness is in there. I don't know. But this is, unfortunately, just the first volume of this adaptation. There's 3 or 4 of these, I think, of these Lovecraft manga adaptations. And I have to say, the art is very good. It very well conveys this sense of scale and this sense of despair and loneliness and isolation. This story follows an expedition to Antarctica, where they are just trying to they're trying to use a new drill in order to find out more about Antarctica, to discover things no one has discovered. It takes place during this big boom of exploration to Antarctica, and people are just continually pushing farther and farther into the continent to try to see things and discover things that no one else has before. So we're following an expedition of, we've got a geologist and a biologist and an engineer, and they find some things that don't fit known science. They contradict known science facts, which is very exciting because it could lead to scientific breakthroughs, but is also met with some hesitance because it is very unusual and does not seem like it could be true. We are shown at the very beginning of the story, in this prologue, that there is a disaster that takes place of a sub-party that went out and to investigate, and that when they are discovered, they are all lost in a very not conventional way. So the art, it does a very good job of conveying these grisly ends to some of these characters, this sense of strangeness. I think it's very difficult with Lovecraft adaptations. So much of Lovecraft's horror relies on things that are incomprehensible, right? Like, so much of the eldritch beings, they are scary because you cannot comprehend them in size, in scope, in how they mesh with what you know about science. They're wrong in some way. They don't work. They are hard to explain, and they are difficult to perceive because you don't understand how they work. And that's a lot of the horror, right? They're terrifying because you don't understand them and you can't comprehend what you are seeing. It's completely outside of what the things you know to be true, right? And that's incredibly difficult to then transform into, say, a manga, a graphic work, or a movie. So I give them really good credit here. They've done a good job of making these things very unfamiliar, very strange. And we can see that reflected in the other characters of how they react to these things that they are seeing. It is a difficult task, I think, to try to undertake that and turn this unperceivable thing into something you are very clearly perceiving. But this has done a good job. I definitely feel the buildup of tension here. We only got halfway through. I'm interested in seeing what volume 2 is like because we have had kind of an arc of like discovery and catastrophe and discovery of the catastrophe. So I'm interested in seeing like where we're going from here in terms of the conflict and what we're going to do now with the information we have. So I might see if my library has volume 2 of this. I don't know if I want to buy it or not. I'm kind of on the fence with whether I want to own these H.P. Lovecraft adaptations or not. I'm still not sure, but this one was very good. I don't know if someone who has read the story first would agree as much. I don't know, but I liked it. So if you're interested in checking out Lovecraft, but maybe that hurdle of the older text and the maybe more archaic language and these things that you can't perceive is a hurdle, this might be a good option. I will say there were a couple of points. I started reading this very late at night, and there are a few points where it gets very wordy, where there's maybe a page of a paragraph of text. And that was very oh, okay, I've got to read. I have to read something I was not prepared for, historical writing, right? But most of this is dialogue because, again, we're dealing with manga. So while there are a couple bits where there is almost like a voiceover text that kind of gives you further in a wholly unknown life form, there will be kind of descriptive observation text. But most of it is dialogue. And that makes it a lot easier to read than I think the original Lovecraft work would be. So if you find Lovecraft intimidating, this might be a great place to start. I was excited to read it, and it definitely makes me want to get into those Lovecraft stories more, and I enjoyed this a lot. So the next thing I started reading, I had my first full reread with reading The Haunted Bookstore. I bought this ages ago. I don't know if I bought this in 2024 or 2023. I definitely bought volume 2 in 2024 and hadn't read it yet because it had been a while since I read this one. So this is what I picked up because it's about yokai, it's about spirits and demons in Japan, and that's something that I really enjoy. And I like bookstores. So this seemed like it would be right up my alley. This was decent enough for me to pick up the second volume, although it didn't blow my mind, and on reread that was true too. I enjoyed the characters, but there wasn't anything that popped it up to being a favorite series. Volume 2 was a little confusing in that it wrapped up all of the conflict. And in the author's note at the end, this is based on a novel, like a lot of more recent manga adaptations I've seen. A lot of them are adaptations of novels or novel series. I'm reading a good number of series that are based on novels right now, actually, now that I think about it. But this one, it mentions that the end of this one corresponds with the end of the first novel, which kind of makes sense. It wraps up a lot of stuff. My main problem with this series is, like I said, it wraps up too well. There's no larger story. I have no idea where this is going to go next. We were dealing with a character who was looking for a certain spirit, and we've wrapped that up now. And we haven't established any other antagonistic forces. We haven't established any other greater mysteries. We kind of wrapped everything up in a nice bow, and I'm wondering if, when the author wrote the novel series, I'm wondering if, a lot like manga, you have to worry about whether your series will get picked up as a series, and maybe he didn't know if it was going to continue, so that first novel is very self-contained in case he just wanted it to be a standalone, or in case it didn't get picked up for a series. I don't know how the Japanese publishing industry works, but if that's the case, that would make sense. I enjoy the characters. I enjoy seeing the different art of the different yokai. It's funny because there's a character in here who showed up in the Kitaro volume I read earlier this year. This is Nurarihion, and he showed up in Haunted Bookstore and is very different. And that was really fun. I like stories that play with folklore, and I like seeing different interpretations of yokai and what they're like and how they interact with humans. So yeah, I guess I should tell you what this is about. I'm doing a really bad job, guys. Can you tell it's been a while since I've recorded content? So The Haunted Bookshop is about a girl named Kaori who is a human who was abandoned as a child, I think. Her backstory is not completely clear. But she was raised in the spirit realm. And all the spirits love her. She is super popular. And one day, she and her adopted father find this boy, Suime. They find him, a human, transported into the demon world. And so he is looking for a certain spirit, and they decide to help him out. So we have kind of a fish out of water and an outsider who is accepted in this community, kind of interacting in this spirit world. We see a bunch of other spirits and how they react to these two characters. Suime is very surprised because he was an exorcist, and he kind of comes in with this prejudice that most demons are very bad and will hate him because he was an exorcist. And he gets a lot of pushback from various spirits who are like, oh, well, the ones you exorcised were probably doing bad stuff in the human world. They totally deserved it. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. And he's just like, what? Why do you not hate me? So it's been interesting seeing that kind of play on things. What I really liked is how the spirits don't really understand Kaori. She is human, her lifespan is much shorter than theirs, she doesn't have any special powers, and at one point, Suime notices that, like, Kaori isn't smiling, that something is bothering her, and he brings it up with a character who's known her for years, and they say, oh, I didn't notice that. And they say, please help us because you're going to pick up on things we don't notice because you're also human. And it's done some very interesting things in that regard of what it is to be human and how that's maybe different from these spirits, how these things affect us, what it means to be family, this found family, when she's going to age much faster than they are. It's very cute. I like the characters. I like the setting. I just don't know where the conflict is going. So I'll have to pick up more of this one, but it was a nice, sweet read, and I did enjoy it. And that brings us, finally, to today. Today led me to starting probably one of my biggest crimes of purchasing without reading the previous volumes, and that is Blue Lock. Now, this is what I'm dealing with. Ooh. I have 7 unread volumes of Blue Lock. So I can tell you what happened with this. So I bought volume 15 last year, and I realized that it did not end the match that I was reading. Volume 14 does the first half of the match. The entire first half is in this volume. So I kind of like flipped ahead just to see where this went, and I realized the match wasn't over. So I didn't read this. So I got volume 16, and I kind of flipped through and realized this game still isn't over. I don't want to read it if the game isn't over. And then I kind of stopped checking. I just kind of kept buying, because I think it ends in 17. It might end in 18, but I think it ends in 17. Let me see. Yeah, it should end in volume 17. But I was frustrated, and I already had a bunch of them. And Blue Lock has been coming out really fast. It's been coming out like once a month, I want to say. Because again, I bought all of these this year. Like, I bought 6 of these this year. So it's coming out quick. It's coming out not quite every month, but close. It's on a very accelerated release schedule, at least until it catches up with the release in Japan. And then I'm sure it will slow down as Spy Family did. And Witch Hat did. That seems to be the thing right now. We speed through releases to catch up to Japan, and then we have to wait. Which is still much better than it was in the 90s. I'll take it. 2 of these I just bought last month, very recently. So this just has compounded and gotten worse. I decided I wanted to reread the end of volume 13 just to get myself back in Blue Lock and remind myself of who some of these newer introduced characters were. I started a little over halfway through the volume. I started after the tryouts and with the selection of the Blue Lock 11. And that's all I will say, so that if you are not caught up in Blue Lock, that should be pretty spoiler free, because you don't know what any of those words mean. So the tryouts were over and we were selecting the team, and so I started there so that I could see who all the team was and why they were selected, and that was helpful. And again, I'm not counting that one because I didn't reread the whole volume, but maybe I should have just reread it. If you count the 2 half rereads I did with Sakura Hime and Blue Lock, I should get another volume, but I'm not going to count those. So I decided to start with 14, which I have read today. I reread the first half of the game. It's pretty late. Today is the 9th, so there will only be one more update to this video with whatever I read tomorrow. I'm hoping to read maybe... it'd be nice to finish their game. So yeah, I'm hoping to read these 3 volumes tomorrow to get through the second half of that game. I am still just like, it is bonkers to me that the first half is this volume and the second half takes 3 volumes. It's the same amount of time. And then we'll get to see what happens after that, because I don't know much about what happens next. I know a little bit just from existing in fandom spaces. I've seen stills and pictures that give me an idea of what happens afterward, but I don't know details. So I am excited to get caught up in Blue Lock. My daughter's soccer season started this past weekend. She had her first game, and so that kind of put me back in the soccer mood. And also, like I said, this is one of my biggest offenders in buying without reading, and so I want to knock it off my TBR pile so that I can feel less guilty about continuing to buy new volumes when I haven't read the previous ones. So I am going to skedaddle. I should probably go to sleep. Might read manga instead. We'll see. But I'm going to take off, and I will update you one more time with what I finish tomorrow and try to get this one out super quick so that we can get 3 updates on the 30 in 30 done this month. And maybe introduce some new manga for you, maybe help you find something to check out, or just listen to me ramble about manga. That's fun too. So I'll see you in a bit for my update about what I read tomorrow for the 10th. Okay. Okay, so we are in a new place for a new update. Ignore the absolute chaos behind me. Oof, I have 2 children. So today I finished 2 volumes, which are Blue Lock 15 and 16. I couldn't quite get through volume 17. I was too tired. So hopefully finish up the game tomorrow. But we are very close to the end of this game. So now that I have those, I have read officially, I have in front of me in little piles. I've read 14 volumes in these first 10 days. And so I thought we would take a look at that way. We would take a look at the tracker, the prompt tracker, and see if I can slot some of these in for the challenges. I am almost certainly not doing all 50 challenges. I am aiming for level 4 right here, this do 30 challenges. There are several on here that just look a bit much, and I'm probably not going to get all 50. And that's okay. Level 4 is plenty for me. So, because I felt this was a little chaotic, I went ahead and broke the prompts down by type. So I have these long-term ones that require you to read multiple volumes or read a bunch over time. I have these ones of things that you feel or do while reading. These ones that are not reading, they're posting photos or doing other things. Ones based on recommendations, based on what's on the cover, based on the format of the manga, based on the genre or the content, based on your TBR. These are going to be really personal to you. Series related, based on like starting or finishing or continuing a series. And then ones that are based on my kind of feelings, like based on how I feel about reading. So this made a lot more sense to me. Anything in the long term or the non-reading categories, I'm not going to enter a manga here on the spreadsheet because I feel like they require too many and it would take a whole lot away from the other ones. Also, the ones that are not book related, like posting a photo or writing a review, that's the task, not reading the volume. Reading the volume can count for something else. And if I read 60 volumes, I'm not going to say, oh, the 60th volume I read has to go to that challenge. No, like they can all count for other things. So I think the hardest ones that are going to be are these ones based on these covers and these formats and the genre, because it just means you have to read all of these things while not overlapping with them. I don't know if there's a rule on you can count a manga for 2 prompts or not. I doubt it. because I feel like that would fill these up way too quickly. So I'm going by the idea that any one volume can only count for one prompt outside of those two categories that I mentioned. So what that means is I'm going to try to slot the 14 volumes I read and see which ones of these um, things I can check off. So the first one I noticed is there's a thing of do a try three, which is to read 3 volumes in a series, which I did with Blue Lock Nagi. So I'm going to go ahead and count that one because I definitely did that. Now the problem is trying to find it on here because they're in a completely different order. Here we go. And I will write in there what series it was. I'm hoping to actually read a few series of maybe the first 3 volumes. So, um, but that way I can just remember which series it was. And again, that doesn't mean Nagi can't count for anything else. And in fact, one of the cover ones is blue on the cover. Read a volume with a blue background. I'm counting Nagi for that for sure. So let's find that. You know what? The fastest way to do this is going to be to do this. Blue Lock, Nagi 1. Definitely blue. Now I don't know that any of these other ones are going to count for anything else. Let's see. With Nagi, unfortunately, they're all blue. They all have humans, but they have more than one human, so they don't count for either of those. There's no sky or flowers, or neither one is my favorite color. No stars. So I'm not sure those will count for anything in the cover category. Let's see. These were not outside my comfort zone. These were not old or the most recent. That's a very specific book. Um, let's see. This was neither starting nor finishing a series. I'm not current on it. I didn't read the entire. It isn't quite a favorite. A continuous series you have multiple on your TBR. Blue Lock seems better for that than Blue Lock Nagi does. So at the moment, I'm not going to put anything down for these 2 specific volumes. That doesn't mean I'm not going to come back later and find somewhere where they fit. But at the moment, I'm not going to count these ones because I don't feel like they count. I don't feel like they lend themselves well. Maybe one of these could be an action series because they are very actiony, but again, I feel like I'm going to have some better contenders. So for now, these 2 don't get counted. Let's move on to Blue Lock. I've got 2 greens and a red. I do think one is red on the cover. It is. So we'll go ahead and count Blue Lock 15 for red on the cover. And then again, I said that the continue a series you have multiple volumes on your TBR would work better for Blue Lock. I think I'm going to go ahead and count Blue Lock 16 for that one. There we go. Blue Lock 16. And I like how these progress bars fill up as you go. They have this very nicely programmed in so that it keeps track of your prompts if you remember to check the boxes. That leaves us with 14, which I'm not sure is going to fit anywhere super well. Again, it can fit for a single person on the cover, right? That's one of them. Read a volume with one person on the cover. All of the Blue Lock volumes very nicely have one dude on the cover. Except for the one that has a girl. Let's see. Which of course means that I'm not going to have hardly anything for the rest of Blue Lock. When I read what do I have, 17 through 21? When I read the rest, a lot of these are not going to fit into these prompts, but that's okay. I think with Sakura Hime, I saw on here there is a prompt for reading like an older volume. Where is it? Read a volume that came out pre 2023. This came out in like 2011. So, yeah, this came out of August 2011 was the first printing, and the third printing was in 2014. I have a lot of recent manga I'm trying to prioritize for this challenge. So I think this is going to be my best bet to put that down as read a volume that came out pre 2023. Just because I have so many other ones that I am trying to prioritize that I've bought within the last 2 years. I have plenty of manga published pre 2023, but they weren't ones I was planning on reading in this challenge. So that's probably a good choice for that one. Let's see what's next. Batman Justice Buster takes place outside Japan. It takes place in Gotham City. So that's a good one for that one. Read a series not based in Japan. Okay, that counts good for that. And there wasn't a cover one that was like black on the cover, which that also would have gone good with, but there really wasn't that. Let's see. At the Mountains of Madness is one I got from my library, so this is good for read a volume you didn't purchase. Here we go. Spelling is fun. One. Also not set outside Japan, but I think it works better here for didn't purchase since these are currently my two library picks, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pull more out of the library before the end of September. I have Cat Gamer. Cat Gamer was one that they suggested because what's really nice is if you go to the spreadsheet, they have recommendations for some of these different prompts that maybe you wouldn't be as familiar with. It isn't for all the prompts, but I did notice when I was looking through this earlier that no humans on the cover, one of the things they recommended was Cat Gamer. So that made me happy. But yeah, you see there's suggestions for not based in Japan and fall colors. So if you're really struggling with a prompt, you could come here. And I'm sure there's other stuff in the Discord communities too. But this was really nice to see that as some suggestions in case you're struggling. So let's see. Without humans on the cover. Here we go. Could also be a contemporary. But I think it works good for not humans because a lot of my manga's got people on the cover. So that's a good one to knock out there. That was this one. All right, all I've got left are my 2 volumes of The Haunted Bookstore and my 2 volumes of Strange Houses. Was there one for reading a horror? Let's see. Under genre, fantasy, contemporary, romance, mystery. Well, mystery could work for Strange Houses. It's definitely a mystery. In fact, I think it's more of a mystery than it is a horror. Action adventure from a classic mangaka, not based in Japan. Yeah, okay. I think mystery plot works well for Strange Houses. So we're going to put that there. There we go, mystery plot. All right, Strange House has a mystery plot. It definitely does. You're trying to figure out what's up with this house. These also, again, one person on the cover. And these, again, are very black. They're not going to work for a lot of those cover challenges. There isn't sky or flowers or stars on here. So they're not going to work for those challenges very well. I'm not sure that second volume of Strange House is going to work well for anything else. So let me look at the cover challenges again real quick, but I'm not seeing it. And then last I have Haunted Bookstore. These both have a couple people. This would be a fantasy series. This is set in a spirit world. It's definitely fantasy based. Let's see. Doesn't have the sky, has butterflies. Not a prompt. Okay. So I think we're going to go with a fantasy series for this one. Let's see right here. Read a fantasy series. Bookstore, not shop. And we'll go ahead and check that one off. Which means I've done 11, which means I've completed level 1 and level 2, which is good. Now I had 4 volumes that I couldn't really fit into anything, but I think that's pretty good progress considering that's, if my goal is 30, I've already done a third of those, and I'm a third of the way through the month. That's right on track. Let's see. Which ones did we do? So we can mark these off. Now I could later on, if I have one that fits multiple categories, I could go ahead and move things around later. Like I said, there's a ton of manga that has one person on the cover. So if I discover something that's going to work better for that one, I could definitely move some stuff around. We did Not Based in Japan, and we did pre-2023, and we did library. What am I missing? Let's see. We did a fantasy and a mystery. And we did continue a series you have multiple volumes in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that is the state of my challenges based on type. Again, this is just a little easier for me to look at. Absolutely no shade to the wonderful host of this readathon for this amazing spreadsheet. This was just something I took about 30 minutes to put together because it was just a little easier for me to visualize them based on type. But we've got 11 of them filled out. We are currently on track to read a volume every day. Let's see. Here's some other features of this really cool spreadsheet. I haven't read 10 volumes of the same series yet, but I have read from a bunch of different series. I'm up to 8 different series, which is exciting. 30 volumes for your physical TBR. I've got 10. I didn't count my rereads of Blue Lock 14 or Strange Bookstore 1 or my library books because they're not on my physical TBR. So those 4 didn't count for the physical TBR challenge, but I got 10 others. And then I have the 14 I've read right here. We're a little behind on reading those 60 volumes. We are about a fourth of the way there instead of a third of the way there, which is where we need to be. But we made some good progress. I've only had one weekend, so we've definitely got some time to catch up and get some extra books in. And now that I'm like seeing everything, it's very nice. So this is the ones for the longer term goals that can help you keep track. There's also a daily reading tracker that I have been filling in with one of the volumes I read that day, as well as this. And again, this nice little tracker keeps track of how many of the days you read. There's also a purchase tracker, which I'm currently technically on track to do. And then, like I said, these wonderful recommendations that they put in here so you don't have to go anywhere. They're right here. As well as these cool graphics for if you wanted to do some graphics for your pile of possibilities of what you might read for these different prompts. They have these nice little graphics built in so that you could easily fill out and use on your channel or post wherever you like. I'm not going to use this one this year. I kind of looked at the spreadsheet a little too late to really look into what I wanted to do. But you could also, you don't even need to get the covers. You could just type the words in here and have ideas set for what you might be reading for those different series. So yeah, really cool spreadsheet. A lot of thought went into this to make it very usable, very helpful. Uh, the hosts are great. I think it's wonderful. So yeah, we are on track to read at least 30 volumes. I don't know if we're going to get to 60, but again, we don't have to get to 60 because we're not shooting for reading all 50 challenges. We're shooting for 30, which means we are right on track. We read 14 volumes. Not everyone fit a challenge, and that's okay. 11 of them did, and we're on track for several more of these challenges. We're on track for maybe doing 30 on our physical TBR, as well as 10 volumes for 10 different series. And if I get really motivated and find a series I've got 10 volumes in, we might do that one as well. I do have a series in mind. It just depends on what I feel like reading at the time. So next week, I'm planning on finishing catching up on a few of the series I have in progress. I've got Spy Family, I've got Given. I also have my secret manga tournament project that I've been doing, where I could read volumes for that, but if I do that, I can't tell you about them. So I'm kind of on the fence there because I don't want to spoil, since I'm past round one, I don't want to spoil what wins in the manga tournament. So I don't know. If I do that, it may be slightly outside, or I'm going to have to write like secret manga tournament on the spreadsheet. So I don't know. I might save that for later or really push myself and just make that additional to the volumes I'm reading for the 30 and 30. We'll see. We'll see how motivated I am. But I definitely have Spy Family I want to get caught up in. I want to finish Given. I'd like to read Kaiju Girl Caramelized. I'd like to catch up on Witch Hat Atelier, which might be the one that I read 10 volumes of because I might just reread what I've read to get all the way current. What else? What else? I have a ton of volume ones that I need to read. I don't know if I'm going to read them all for this challenge, or if I'm going to save them. I'm kind of on the fence of trying to figure out if I want to do something for a video, like a vlog, or if I just want to get them out of the way so I can figure out what I want to purchase and what I want to leave behind. It's usually purchase. I'm a big fan of manga. But that'll do it for the first 10 days. I'm going to let you go so that I can try to get this done and posted before it's too far into the month. If you're doing the 30 and 30 challenge, let me know down below. Let me know how you're doing. What have you been reading? Anything that I read catch your eye? Do we share any taste in common? I love watching videos of other people doing readathons like this because you get to see manga is so quick to read, right? Like you can knock out one or two a day easy, even with a busy schedule. So this kind of readathon lets you see a whole bunch of manga from other people. Some favorites, some you've never heard of. It's really cool to see the wide variety of what people are reading. That's really fun. So leave a comment down below if you have anything to say about what I read or what I'm planning to read. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you want to see more of me for some reason. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you next chapter. Bye! Volume 2 is like... Don't count the number of times I hold up volumes backwards. The 30 in 30. It's been a while.